Aloha, everybody. It's either Monday, May 30th or Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, depending on where you are on the timeline. And this Jim and Jory, and where we are in the timeline is pretty much the last time zone in the United States in Hawaii. And I'm feeling kind of excited to be here today to share stuff with this group that we've never shared, I don't think. In fact, as I was doing some research to get ready for the call today, we last taught this material, as far as I can tell, in a whole way in 2011. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of my mouth this time compared to 12 years ago, 11 years ago. And I'm curious. And Jory, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really delighted that we're doing this. My energy was just sort of sinking before, and I'm going, oh, do I have the energy? I think I just want to take a nap. And actually arriving here and looking at all your faces, I'm getting re-energized. I didn't even drink coffee, but I am getting energized. And I'm excited about this topic as well. This particular topic was something that we dealt with early on, and when we sort of unexpectedly ended up with two kids and sort of struggling to get the balance there. And we took a course that about money that changed our life and gave us the skills we needed to transform the quality of our survival. I don't know what else to call it. So I'm delighted that we're doing this right now.
Yeah, then we took what we learned from that original course, and then we supplemented it with some other great learning, including from Marshall. And so it's kind of a mashup of nonviolent communication and some other things. And I'll try to distinguish between the various things as we go today. If you're here for the first time, we give you a especially warm welcome. We're really glad that somehow you discovered us. We've been doing this group as an international Zoom group since the pandemic started, and I'm never going back. I'm having so much fun doing this. I might start doing in-person practice groups again someday, but I don't think I'll ever be able to give this up. This has just been such a blast.
Yeah, and most of you know that we do breakout rooms fairly, a few times during our call. If you don't want to be in a breakout room for any reason, maybe it's not okay to be talking where you are or whatever it is, put an equal sign before your name so that I know not to put you into one of the groups. And there was another one I was going to say, but it has
I
slipped
think
my mind.
you might have been going to coach them if they want to practice in a language other than English. You can also
Thank you.
you can
Thank
change the name
you.
and add that too,
Yes.
like
Mhm.
Sharona did. She speaks Mandarin as well. So if you want to try
And
practicing,
yeah, perfect. And if you have any requests about the practice group, if you have people that you'd like to be with, do put a note in the chat. I'll do my best to make groups of people who ask to be together.
yeah. So just a little bit more about the overall frame of the class, especially for newcomers. We'll start in just a moment with a self-connection exercise, which is just a chance for you to kind of be with yourself and get grounded and ready for the class, get clear on your intention, and to bring your attention as much as possible into the present moment. And then there'll be, after the self-connection exercise, Jory will make groups, probably groups of three. And in that group, we'll give you a prompt to use as a check-in question. And then we will come back here and hear from a few people just to get kind of reconnected as a big community. Then we have a lesson today on NVC and money. It's part one of at least two parts. We'll see how the energy goes after today, and maybe we'll do a few more. And then a lesson. After the lesson, there'll be another chance for some more practice, and then more small group work. So we kind of go back and forth in that alternating pattern between large group work and small group work and some content.
Mhm.
So
And a
Lorraine,
couple more people have joined. So again, I will remind you, if you don't want to be in a breakout room, put an equal sign before your name on the left part of your, where you have your name there. And I will make sure that you are put into another room where you can hang out and wait for us.
all right, thanks, Joy. So today we're gonna the topic is NVC and money, and so this can be a very polarizing topic. So to help us get really grounded, we'll just do kind of a basic NVC self-connection practice to help you arrive and get really clear on why you're here, and also give you a little clue about how you can get back to this quality of spiritual clarity as we go if you start getting triggered in any way. So it just starts by doing what you're doing now, as you're using your eyes and you're looking out, maybe at a computer screen, maybe you're looking down at a piece of paper or taking notes or something like that. And just notice that you're doing that. Bring some awareness to what it is that you're already doing. And then just relax and let your eyes go wherever they want to go. So we often kind of drive our eyes, or it seems like we are. But this time, just relax and let your eyes go wherever they would like to go. And let your head and maybe even your whole body accompany your eyes. This is practicing the skill of observing and the skill of presence. I just noticed I took a big breath. Maybe you noticed that too. This activity just tends to activate a different part of your nervous system. And if you're comfortable doing it, you can close your eyes. No have tos here. Keep the eyes open if you'd prefer. And now we shift our attention to what we notice in terms of sensations in the body. Sensations means anything like maybe a tingle, some pain, your heartbeat, tight muscle. I'm reporting some of the things that I notice. Even notice the moisture in my mouth, my feeling of my chest rising and falling. You may also be aware of emotions. Sensations and emotions seem to me to just kind of arise, and they're kind of fall away to be replaced by another arising, kind of like waves at the ocean. Every moment, a new moment. And then see if you can follow or link these sensations and emotions to your needs. In other words, what's important to you right now? Why did you come to this call? What are you hoping for? So now we've just practiced the part of nonviolent communication that Marshall Rosenberg, the founder, said is what's alive? What's alive in you? What's alive in me? What we're observing, feeling, and needing. And then that opens up a natural space to consider the second thing that NVC helps us to do, which is discover what will make life more wonderful from now on, or the request. So, what could you ask of yourself that might help you get the needs that you identified satisfied? And if you don't know what you might ask for, you could always make a request of yourself to return to this exercise, or just even simply to return to looking around. And that will support your well-being. If your eyes have been closed, you can let them open now if you want to. You can also just fall asleep. It's okay too. Or leave them closed the whole time. Your choice.
Yeah. We'll teach to your subconscious.
And so,
So
in just a minute, Jory's going to open up the small groups for you. And here's what I'd like to invite you to talk about today is first, just check in with your new friends or maybe old friends that you're seeing again. But then just tell a little story about a wonderful thing or a joyful thing concerning money in your life. Any kind of a thing where you had any sort of a joyful experience related to money. Could be something like a time when,
anything you can celebrate.
yeah,
Is that what you mean? Yeah, anything you can celebrate.
a couple of ideas that came up for me as I thought about the question is maybe a time when I received a little unexpected money, like once we were swimming in the ocean and the equivalent of a $50 bill floated by out of nowhere. And that was like an unexpected gift from the universe. That's pretty joyful. And then I remember another time where I had some extra money and I gave it to somebody who needed it more than I did. That was another experience of joy. So it could be money, the sense that you have of joy when you either give or receive money. So think about a story like that you would be willing to share with your mates. And everybody have about 2 or 3 minutes to share. The group will make sure the timer's set for about 10 minutes, Jory. And there'll be 1 minute at the end of the group, the small group. And when you'll get a little message, and as far as we know, you won't come back unless you push the button. So you can just relax. You don't have to do anything in the small group to come back. You'll automatically come back at the end of the time. So whenever you're ready, Jory.
Yeah, we're actually giving you
like a time, like a countdown before the countdown is over.
Yeah, great. Okay, here we are. Maybe just look around again after this transition. Just look around and reorient yourself to a new situation. It's fun for me just to look around the screen and see all of you. I love it when you have your cameras on. That's very sweet for me to see all your faces. See how wiggly human beings are. We're always wiggly. People are just always like, chewing something, smiling, reaching for something. It's really fun to see how human beings are human doings sometimes. So is there anybody who would like to share anything about a delightful money experience? Something joyful related to money? You can, if you wonder how to raise your hand, on the bottom of your screen, there's some little buttons, and one of them says reactions, has like a little smiley face. And if you click on that, it opens up a little menu and you can raise your hand there. Thanks, Vega. Go ahead.
Yes, I realized I've never shared some joyful experience about money, maybe with people. So it shifted something in me, and it really gives me joy, especially I have been struggling nowadays quite much, and now already I feel quite light. There sometimes I practice, people said, okay, so you need to be grateful for what you have. So that gratitude exercise also gives something, but this just share what was joyful is again different. Yeah, there's more lightness, and I don't have clarity exactly, but it gives me different joy. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Yeah, Dan.
When I've received money because it's been given to me from a place of the joy of contribution, that really felt touching to me.
Thank you. Yeah. One more? If anybody's willing? Yeah, great, great. Anthony, please go ahead.
Hello. I was sharing with the group that I was in. For myself, I'm experiencing some of the toughest financial hardship in my life right now. And when you mentioned last week that this was going to be the topic this week, I was just like, oh wow, perfect. Because it sounds like they're so it's really difficult to get into, and NVC and Money, wow. So I was thinking, well, I really want to do something nice for people around me in my community. I want a little more, I don't know, connection. I want more livelihood, something, I need a little something more around me, connection around me, seeing all these people. So what I did was, okay, I don't have much money, and I've been struggling for a little while now, and I got to figure things out, and I've been on the drama triangle so much, and so I was like, okay, take a couple bucks, like $10. I went and bought like a small bouquet of flowers, helped out the person that was selling the flowers. So cool, they got some money. And I just went around and handed out some flowers to people. And it was nice to see their reaction, just very smiling and happy and caught off guard, and just real nice and pleasant, right? Because I was thinking today, since it's Memorial Day, and I went to the cemetery to visit my great grandfather. And I was like, you know what? I want to also just give people their flowers while they're still alive too. And so I just did that. Just a couple, because I don't have much money to buy a bunch of flowers. So I just did a couple just today and got myself out of my comfort zone a little bit, just a little anxiety going, just to go up to strangers and just say, hey, I just want to give you, So it was a really nice experience. Very brief, but really nice. And yeah, that was a pleasant experience to turn it into something positive, to try to transform it. So to try to find creative ways to meet needs, I guess. So
Wow,
that
thanks.
was a good experience for me. Thank you.
I really like that. Joy, are you going to say something? I saw you move your mouth, but I didn't see you unmute.
Oh, I was going to express my gratitude that you did that. I was touched.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Just like I'm trying to think of it's almost like ninja giving. You just like you just give in a stealthy way with no expectation of getting anything back other than the joy of giving. I love that. Thanks, Anthony. Okay, so let's dive into the content, unless there's somebody else who would like to share anything. Okay. I do want to read one thing in the chat just so, because people who listen to the recordings would otherwise miss this. Suda said, it's interesting how the exercise asks us to bring up our joyful memories. Usually my experience is of being asked to remember pain around money. Help me to shift too. Yeah, that's why we asked it that way. That's why we started with that. um, that's our stealthy gift to you, with by demonstrating that we actually have choice about where we place our attention, and simply asking somebody for a joyful memory about anything. The other person's brain will be very responsive to those kinds of guesses. I mean, gifts sometimes, but not always. You might also get a response like once I was at the grocery store and I said, another question that I often use is, what's going well? That's a question I learned from Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania. And so I was at the local grocery store pre-pandemic, and I said to the cashier, what's going well? And she said, nothing is going well. Well, that wasn't what I was expecting, but nevertheless, I thanked her for her answer, and then I had the opportunity to give her the gift of just a little bit of empathy. And so I said, "It sounds like maybe you're not having an easy day," or I don't remember what my empathy guess was, but something like that. And she said, "Yeah, that's right." And we finished the transaction, and then that was the end of that. Till the next day, I realized I forgot something at the grocery store, so I went back, and by chance ended up with the same cashier, and I said, "What's going well?" And I didn't quite snap to the fact that it was maybe the same cashier. Maybe I did, I don't remember. And she said, "You asked me that yesterday. Yesterday was a terrible day. Today is a much better day." Then she listed about 3 or 4 things that were going well for her. And so again, we had this sense of connection. That was a delightful surprise. So the topic today, I'm going to share my screen with you. That's not the topic of the day, but topic of the day is nonviolent communication and money. And we're going to explore a little bit about how NVC and money are related or not. And I just want to give some acknowledgments right off the bat. I'm very grateful for this adventure for Jory and me. Jory mentioned earlier that our adventure with money started back about 1985 or so, long before we knew about NVC, 15 years before we knew about NVC. And it was through the work of Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. And the source material was a book called Your Money or Your Life that's still available, and a course that I actually found the link. I'll share it at the end of the call with you all to be able to take a free course. That's the course that Jory and I did. And then also to acknowledge Marshall Rosenberg, who is the source for the most coherent and meaningful part of everything that we share today. And then also a man named George Kinder, who's the author of 7 Stages of Money Maturity. And George is a certified life planner, I think is his certification. And I think he comes from the world of financial planning. And there was a transformation in that industry from financial planning to life planning. I really like that distinction because it's not so much about the money, it's about the life energy that we can enjoy and contribute to as we transform our experience of money. So we're going to go through George's 7 stages of money maturity. And we will focus today primarily on innocence. So we're all born innocently, right? We're all born without any education. As far as we know, we come in mostly empty. We have some genetic programming. We have some kind of animal-based instincts and intuitions, of course, that help us to survive before we develop any rational thinking, because at the root of it, we're animals. but we're innocent. We don't have any. We don't even know what money is. If you take some money and hand it to a baby, they put it in their mouth to try to figure out what it is, right? So they're completely innocent, and they wouldn't know the difference between a $1 bill, a $100 bill, Chinese money or American money, any of that. So we just don't know anything about money. Then as we continue to grow through childhood, eventually we connect with some pain and suffering around money. We become aware that we're aware. And when that happens, we might notice pain or suffering directly related to money. The distinction that I and Jory like to talk about between pain and suffering goes like this. Pain is of the body and suffering is of the mind. So if you had a childhood experience where your family did not have enough money for to provide basic necessities like food or shelter for some period of time, then that would stimulate pain, direct pain, and you might have had that experience. Unfortunately, billions of people still have that experience every day. Suffering is when we add thought to the pain. We add some sort of a moral judgment about the pain that we're experiencing, that this shouldn't happen to me or it shouldn't happen to other people. And we bring that kind of programming in a lot around money. And so it can really color the kind of an experience that we have related to money. Then as we continue to grow up, we eventually hit puberty and we hit some measure of adulthood, most of us, and we start learning something about money. So we kind of go to our left brain, and depending on the kind of schooling you got and the kind of parents you had and so forth, what kind of systems were around in your part of the world, you probably started gaining practical knowledge about money, like maybe how to count change, how to how to assess the value of one item over another, how to save money, how to maybe even invest money and so forth. You just start accumulating skills and techniques in order to navigate a world of money. Now I'm speaking in a very biased way because I'm an American, and we actually have more words that describe money than we have words to describe God in our culture. So money is something that we get a lot of training in, and there's a lot of awareness, and yet I still ended up mostly ignorant. When I was in college, my parents gave me a checkbook for the first time with a little bit of money in it, but they never taught me how to balance the checkbook. And so I made a lot of mistakes with not really knowing how to navigate something as basic as that. Another thing that emerges in adulthood is more understanding. So now we shift to the right brain, and we begin to develop understanding about money. We might really get that I have more money than some people. Some people have more money than me, and we might have more understanding about how our relationship with money. And that might, in the best of cases, awaken compassion, so that we see that if we have more money than some people, that we might be able to share our resources with others in order to contribute to their lives being easier and having more well-being. That's another thing that I do appreciate about the United States is we're a very generous culture. According to the studies that I've read, Americans donate more money than any other developed country to NGOs and nonprofits and so forth. And I think it's because there is some awakening of compassion as we become adults. The final aspect of adulthood is vigor. And that's learning how to, on the matrix, which we've been studying for the last few months, we call it cultivating vitality. It's like, how can we connect with our life energy in order to be present for things about money, and what do we do with that energy? And part of what we do is we start addressing innocence, pain, and suffering in ourselves and in others with that excess energy. And that's what we'll be focusing some on today. If we keep going on our money maturity adventure, eventually we will enter maturity or awakening around money. And the first part of that is vision. We enter into a world in which it's possible to have a relationship with money and with the business world and so forth, where we're much clearer. We're mature about how to give and receive, either for profit or not for profit. So we might start businesses, we might work for an NGO, we might be able to have clear exchanges with people and so forth, because we're developing a mature vision of our relationship to money. And if we make it all the way to the end, George called the final stage aloha. I'm borrowing the word from the Hawaiian language. The best English translation for aloha is love, although it also relates to the idea of hello and goodbye, so giving and receiving. And it also, I think, aloha refers to interdependence, and what in nonviolent communication Marshall called compassionate giving and receiving. So that's the most mature and awakened relationship with money that we're aiming for, as far as I can tell, in the nonviolent communication world, is to awaken to compassionate giving and receiving, and seeing that money can be a powerful strategy in order to contribute to needs. So I just pause here and see if there's any questions or comments from anybody about that very brief overview of these 7 levels of money maturity.
Tim, I
Yes.
have a question.
Okay.
Sounds like aloha have a similar meaning as understanding and compassion.
It's similar. It's just a little broader. Like with understanding and compassion, I look at it as we're halfway home. We have more of an understanding for our relationship to money, and more compassion with those that have it and those don't have it, but we may not yet have the skill to do anything about our understanding and compassion. So even though we might have a desire to give and receive compassionately, give money compassionately, we may not have it to give yet, because we haven't we haven't finished our own knowledge building process, our own financial plan, and so forth. So that's really the distinction for me, is in one case, I'm still building resources in order to give both inner and external, to give and receive compassionately. Whereas when I get to aloha, I'm in a flow. I'm in what Marshall Rosenberg called the flow of life, where giving and receiving is just as natural as breathing. Does that help?
Yeah, sounds like aloha built up based on the vision.
Yes, aloha comes directly out of the vision. It's like all those stages seem like they're necessary to go through. You can't skip them. You can't skip being born. You can't skip getting in contact with pain and suffering. You can't skip gaining knowledge and so forth. That in order to be fully mature with money, that you have to go through all the stages. And in a way, it's a little bit like a spiral. It's not so much, there's a kind of a linear process, but in my experience, sometimes it's more like a spiral. I might arrive at some level of compassionate giving and receiving. Then I learn something more about myself, and I realize where I'm kind of stuck in old painful programming, some kind of graspiness, or something stuck in terms of the flow, some kind of scarcity thinking. Marshall often referred to it as scarcity thinking. So then as I keep working on the underlying stuff, then eventually I take another step towards more aloha. Does that feel complete, Siobhan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Aviva.
Thank you. This is a very important topic. So I wonder, so there's like, I wonder if you could comment about this situation. So let's say that you are accustomed, right? It's a habit of either not having money or having it. And you've grew up that way or whatever, and then it carries on. So let's say you want to like have a quote unquote like healthier, more abundant, manifest, yada yada, of your money thing, but you see what's going on intellectually, you understand like, oh, it's this is the way I've been, but it feels like a big change to go to having less of a struggle with it or whatever. And the same thing with people that have a lot and then they don't even know what to do or how to function. So I guess I just wondering if you could comment about like, when when you're trying to change status, um, I think it seems like there's more obstacles besides just like, oh, this is the pain and suffering. It's like, I don't know, like maybe making a big change, it seems
Yeah.
like, or something.
Your intuition is spot on. In fact, the root of that reluctance to shift is innocence, not pain and suffering. And so you'll see that's actually the first exercise ever. So it's a perfect segue to what we're going to do. So I'm really grateful to how life moved in you to ask that question, because it actually sets us up to go in the direction that I was hoping to go. But before I do that, let me just pause to see if there's anything else up for anybody. Okay, not seeing any other hands. People are eager to practice. So this is going to be a written practice. So it'd be great to have like a journal or to type on your device or something like that. Because we're going to start with exploring innocence. Because of the way we accumulated our innocence, first we were just born into the world. And then we started receiving information from all kinds of sources about money. We weren't like going to school as a 1-year-old saying, hey, mom and dad, teach me about money, or hey, brother and sister who are older than me, teach me about money. We actually got exposed to their previous pain and suffering around money, and we began to absorb it. And so the first step would be to see if we can make conscious what previously has been unconscious. Let's explore what we took on in our innocence from that state of a blank slate. What are some of the beliefs that you have about money right now? And here's a few that are common in American culture, and there are probably equivalents in other cultures. So you can feel free to just explore your own mind and your own cultural experience to discover what beliefs you might have about money. But money doesn't grow on trees, would be one example of a belief about money. Money is the root of all evil, would be another belief. You get what you pay for, or money measures your worth. So I'll just be quiet for about 5 minutes while you consider what do you believe about money? What are the things you've been told? some of your beliefs about money may be indirect. For example, they might refer to people that have or don't have money. So rich people are blank, poor people are blank. So it could be about people, or it could be about systems. The money system is corrupt, capitalism sucks, whatever you think you have absorbed from your culture about either money, people's relationships to money, or systems about money. About 2 more minutes. About 45 more seconds. So as you listen to other people share their beliefs about money, you might recall other things that you think about money as well. So your list doesn't have to be finished in any way. I keep finding these things after all these years. So first, before we start looking at these beliefs, just notice how your body feels having connected to these beliefs. Noticing sensations and emotions that are arising. We're entering forbidden territory here. Taboo is the Maori word, Polynesian language. It's now become an English word as well. Forbidden in Hawaiian, it's kapu. But this is stuff that we usually don't talk about in any direct way. 2 things you're not allowed to talk about at dinner, at least in the United States, are money, how much money you make, and politics, and then of course religion, another forbidden topic. But money's right up there in the forbidden topics in our culture, even though we worship money in the United States, in my opinion. That's a belief I have. Americans worship money. See, I just uncovered a new belief. Well, I wasn't aware of that one until I just said it out loud. So we're going to play a little game now and test these beliefs, because I just want to see if any of them are true, or even what it means to be true. So we're going to do like some pairing. And we're going to see, my guess is if somebody has one belief, somebody else has an opposite belief. Or pretty close to an opposite belief. So, for example, if the belief is money doesn't grow on trees, does anybody have an opposite belief to that? You can put it into the chat if you want. And Marshall had an opposite belief to this, by the way. He said something like, "Oh, money, you just ask for what you need." And people want to give it to you. Okay. There's grace even in the flow of money. Yes. So let's just put that one on this side. There is grace even in the flow of money. What might be the opposite of that? Kind of goes, yeah, money is actually the quote that I did some research on that quote. The actual quote from the Bible is the love of money is the root of all evil. Money comes when it is needed. It's a good one. So put that one on this side. Money comes when it is needed. And the opposite of that, you have to deserve what you get. So it doesn't have anything to do with need. It has to do with whether you deserve it or not. Money makes the world go round. Anybody got a counter to that? How about,
I do. Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
We'd all die if we didn't have money.
We'd all die if we didn't have enough money.
If we didn't have money.
Yeah,
Yeah, we couldn't, the world can't survive without money.
yeah, that's even clearer. Without money, the world can't survive. Chat's getting in the way. Okay. Okay, Fredo asks, what would be the opposite of money measures your worth? So I'll write that on this side. What would be the opposite of money measures your worth? There you go. Rena says, you are worthy irrespective of what you own.
I see Tanya has her hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
The love of money is unrequited.
The love of money is unrequited.
Anybody have an opposite for that?
Yeah, I think I do. See if people think this is an opposite. Oh, go ahead, Siva. Maybe you got an opposite.
I'd like a definition of unrequited.
Oh, unreturned, like unrequited love. You know, if I loved Jory and she didn't love me, thank God that's not true. That would be unrequited love. So in other words, money can't love us back, which is similar to the belief that I have that love, if the love of money is unrequited, the opposite would be money loves me and constantly wants to find me. Which would you rather believe?
It's like if you want a parking place, all you have to do is imagine it.
Yeah, The Secret and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you got it. Ask and you will receive. Beautiful. Okay, so I think you got enough to get the flavor of this. So, what's the takeaway? Go ahead, Rena. First, let's hear Rena, then we'll talk about the takeaway. Or maybe this is.
I just had to. Yeah, I wanted to share that in India, many young people are experimenting with gift culture, and I find that and it comes from some fear of rejection around money. So then there is this sense that, oh, I don't need money, or I can do without money. And I have found myself having conversations where I say that, if money was love, then would you say the same thing? That I can do without love. I can do without, and that's really brought a different relationship with money and resources, and a sense of I am worthy of love.
Yeah.
Whatever, there's no questions asked.
Nice.
So I just bring that when
Yes.
we talked about love.
Thank you, because that's a very healing kind of way of looking at about money that would come from doing that understanding and compassion work, and then that will naturally lead to that compassion and understanding work will naturally lead to some healing around the pain and suffering, and the pain and suffering comes directly out of these innocent beliefs like money is evil, or we should transcend money, or something like that. We should move on. That might be true, and yet we probably have a ways to go on the planet before we can do that total transformation. That's what we're aiming
It
for.
just starts a new inquiry, that's it. It just starts a new inquiry, and
Exactly.
also relooking at the relationships with parents or with your partners around how much each one earns or has. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rena. Money is always there. It is an energy, Patricia writes in the chat. That's very in alignment with how I heard Rena say it as well. In fact, at the spiritual community where Jory and I met, the teacher there said, you treat your money like you treat your love. Do you hoard it? Do you think it's scarce? Or are you generous with it? Do you give it away? And that one still haunts me, because I see the tendency in me today. Even though I live in a world of privilege, I still see that graspiness and that scarcity thinking. If you pair those beliefs, on one hand, the belief is expressing scarcity, and on the other hand, often, not always, but on the other hand, often the belief is expressing abundance. And so the question is, how, and this is where we're going to go to small groups to talk about this. How have these beliefs affected you? So now that you know what you believe about money, at least some of them, and you might even have some dissonance. You might now see that you believe contrary things about money. How does that affect you? What's the impact on your life And so in the small group, you'll have about 15 minutes. So everybody has about 5 minutes to practice empathy and honesty. And what I mean by that is that we'll take turns. One person will express their honesty and say whatever is alive in you. And the other two people in your group will just listen with silent empathy and an open heart. So no advice, no trying to cheer you up, none of the things that aren't empathy, just simply presence. It's the greatest gift you can give another human being. So you'll just practice empathic presence. Empathy requires no words. It just requires love and presence. So one person speaks for 5 minutes or until they feel finished. Then you go on to the next person and they speak for 5 minutes about how have these beliefs affected me and affect me now? Some version of that kind of a question. What's the impact of these beliefs in your life? The other two people listen with empathy, and you go to the third person and repeat. If there's still time, do a second round about impacts, because as you listen to one another, you might unfold more impacts about how things that you have believed have affected you, and how maybe changing your beliefs, challenging your beliefs has affected you over the course of your life. So Jory, whenever you're ready, set the timer for 15 minutes.
Okay,
And off we go.
one moment, please. And then, of course, there's that minute, and everybody's coming back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
Me too. What'd you learn?
Oh, okay, I can go. We learned that we could say what our thoughts were and what the impact was, but it was quite vulnerable. Like we felt vulnerable and embarrassed, even while we were sharing in a small group. That was one thing. And also learned that there was still like a perplexing question of like, and how would we change this to allow more money in or less image of suffering? And that was sort of either like you just keep repeating I deserve more and it's fine, or maybe that whole thing about, okay, this idea from before when I was a child, it worked well for 50 years. Now I can let go of it and say thank you and goodbye and go on to a new belief.
Yeah, I like that strategy. I mean, that's one NVC based strategy for working with any belief that you find limiting, is to look at the needs met by having the belief and the needs that remain hungry by having that belief. And that's why by looking at pain and suffering, which is the next step after innocence, you naturally begin to connect to the consequences of these innocently taken on beliefs. So like many, I don't want to pick on my Maui brothers and sisters too much, but I think there's a lot of old innocent beliefs in Maui about that are kind of related to things like The Secret, that the world is, the universe will take care of us and so forth, which is a beautiful belief, as long as you're also using your knowledge and your skills to support yourself. So now a lot of people my age who have been having this freewheeling Maui lifestyle, they're bumping up against a crisis because they're still living out their innocence because they don't have they haven't built a safety system for themselves. And so the sooner that we start addressing these beliefs and checking to see if they're serving us, and then seeing what we would prefer to believe instead, and what needs might be met by this other way of talking to ourselves, And then we might support ourselves in getting more knowledge and understanding and compassion. But it's not going to happen by beating yourself up. So that's where the compassion comes in, and that you mentioned that it's very vulnerable to expose these beliefs. Of course it is. This is taboo subject. So it makes a lot of sense. And so I really appreciate you saying that. Anything you want to say in response, Aviva? Oops, I think you're muted yourself.
Thanks. It's I forgot about that part where instead of beating yourself up about it, that you say, "Oh, how did this serve me before?"
Yeah.
And what needs was I getting met? And okay, that's not serving anymore. So I could,
Yeah.
even if I don't let go of it, it's like outdated. I mean, actually, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And you know what? Even as I said what I said, I realized that I'm coming out of my own beliefs. For all I know, all my Maui brothers and sisters, they might be on to something that I missed along the way. And so I might have missed something around a connection to divine energy that I could still learn from, to be able to relax. And I mean, I spent a lot of my life energy doing to try to set myself up in order to do what we're doing now. And, maybe I could have just relaxed a little bit more. I might have, my own beliefs might have gotten in the way. So you never know until you keep learning. So Nikilananda, one of my Maui brothers.
Yeah, that was interesting that I raised my hand and then you mentioned about your Maui brothers. So I'm one of your Maui brothers.
Absolutely. And a neighbor too.
Right. Yes. I was thinking today, actually, I mentioned to someone about going to you and Jory's house over the years, So, and I remember doing this years ago at your house. Okay, but the specific, your question that you asked, and when you made the comment about just trusting in the Abdi Maui brothers and sisters, it shook me up because then I'm thinking, oh, I can really relate to that on a certain level. And of course, I'm in a relatively good, it seems, situation. But the question you asked, I'm sorry, there's radar barking. He's got his friend visiting him. So the two of them now, I'm dog sitting for a week. So there's two of them here. But again, your question, and sorry for all the tangents, was that what did we learn in the group? And I'm going to quote someone else in the group. We had 4 people living in 3 different countries. And they said how similar all these different cultures that we're coming from. We've got India and Taiwan and United States and New Zealand, et cetera, and how similar this relationship with the energy, or quote unquote, of money. And so that really got me when this person said it. I go, wow, yeah, that's amazing. Of course, my politics came up and says, yeah, it's because the whole world is capitalistic. Because if you're living in a commune or a barter system, then you don't work with money. And I had that experience for 4 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, but thank you. This is a quite fascinating session. So thank you, Jory and Jim.
You're welcome. In fact, if any of you are interested in other money systems other than the ones that we're kind of given this false choice that we need to choose either a capitalistic system of some sort or a communistic system of some sort or something like that. There are lots of other possibilities, including a gift economy that someone mentioned. That would be the ultimate expression of aloha, that everything related to money would be a gift, either to give or receive. I think maybe we'll focus a little bit more on that next week. We'll see how the flow goes. And then there's a really interesting book called Small is Beautiful that I read many, many years ago by E.F. Schumacher, I think is his name. and it's about small scale capitalism and and that's kind of what Jory and I practice as part of our own financial independence plan as we gained knowledge. And then there's also the work of Manfred Max Neef. That's Max-Neef, Manfred Max Neef. And there's some YouTube videos of him, and he spent his life building a needs-based economy rather than a money-based economy. So there are other alternatives that we just have not yet been exposed to that are possible. Go ahead, Tanya.
I want to disassociate a little bit capitalism and money, because the capitalism came from a book by Smith that was published in 1776. And capitalism is about extracting money from other people in order to accumulate capital. That's what capitalism is. We had money and money exchange for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years before capitalism. And I really would encourage people to disassociate those two ideas, because the root evil of capitalism is slavery. Slavery is the ultimate expression of capitalism.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely no mystery why that book was published in 1776. So I really encourage people to
Thank you. Could you put the name of the book in the chat for people in case they would like to connect to it? Somebody else, what did you learn in the small group as you investigated the impact of your beliefs? I like Donna's question in the chat. Is there a difference between, is the belief serving you or is it true? That's a wonderful question to just consider. And for me as an NVC, from my particular experience of NVC, I always want to look at what the needs are that are being served by any strategy, and beliefs and beliefs are a strategy in a way. And so since I seem to have some possibility of changing my beliefs, maybe not all beliefs, maybe with enough time and enough energy, maybe all of them, I'm not sure, then I want to have the beliefs and live from the beliefs that meet the most needs with the least cost. Zohar.
So what came in our group is that living in our newer beliefs about money that can set us free also required leaving behind a structure of security that we got from our parents, because these beliefs that we got from our parents, we got them when we were very little, and we needed that structure from our parents, not only about money, about everything in life. So if we now choose to do things in a different way, it means that somewhere very, very deep in us, even in the subconscious, we need to let go of this structure of safety that served us in feeling safe all these years.
Yeah.
And that's a big step. And we all shared about an experience of shame around these old beliefs and our other habits with money.
Yeah.
So if you have something to say about that, will be great too.
Oh, I just have a lot of harmony with what you say. Again, it just points for me to how important it is to link our current experience with needs, and then to see if we can trace it back to something of either the level of beliefs, needs, values, maybe even identity, maybe our spiritual connection with other people, that we can start getting more flexible rather than being rigid or fundamentalistic about some of these beliefs. I think that when we have a kind of a fundamentalism about a belief, like money is bad, and or something like that, that will lock us into to not trusting. That actually will prevent us from getting our needs met and so forth. So constantly bringing it up for air and empathy and light, so that we can choose from this moment, from now on, what will serve our lives. What do we want to think? How do we want to be? What's our vision? Not only what is our vision, which could come straight from innocence, right? But if our vision comes from doing that inner work around pain and suffering and understanding and compassion, growing knowledge and so forth, then we can start living our vision now. How do we want to show up in the world? What's our relationship with money going to be? What are we gonna are we gonna fall into our old habit? Like, here's one that was a big awakening for me when I first learned about NVC. Jory and I were involved in a local Buddhist community as well. And we became aware of the work of a guy named Bernie Glassman, who did a lot of work with how people who don't have a home and living on the street. And he would do street retreats. Well, we were never brave enough to do a street retreat, but learning about Bernie's work humanized people who don't have a house to live in right now in a way that no amount of reading newspaper articles could ever have done. And so it shifts my relationship with people who are on the street or living in tents or whatever, to see them as human beings and to see what can I do? How can I help to actually start living this vision now? And that's why we do everything we do in our NVC practice groups here on this compassionate giving and receiving basis. So any money that we end up receiving from you guys gets used to support people learning NVC who couldn't otherwise afford it.
And the gals too.
Yes. And I like what Dan wrote in the chat here. What stood out to me from the breakout room was an awareness of how our relationship with money changes depending on who it comes from, our partner, the government, etc. Nice. What else are you taking away from this exploration of innocence and beliefs, and to see how what we believe might be linked to our suffering? Did anybody contact an enemy image? Those of you who have been studying with us for a while might know what I mean by an enemy image. Did any of you discover any enemy images related to money? Because that's another thing that comes directly out of innocence, are these enemy images.
I did.
An enemy image is the idea that somebody deserves to be punished. And so I know in certain times.
And Corey,
Corey
did respond to you, Jim.
Oh, I don't see anything yet. I wonder if it went private.
She just spoke out.
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
Well, I don't know that I have the same definition now that you're giving your definition. I don't know that about. I wouldn't think an enemy image would, in my mind, be around punishment, but it was definitely a judgment that it was, it was just hard to step away from that thing that happened, that the way I was treated by this particular person.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And what did you learn about that? And did you come up with any clarity for yourself?
I think that at the time, I was really struck by is a very wealthy woman I was working for, and I asked for $1 raise at a time when I was really struggling. I was working for multiple people doing, various things. And $1 raise per hour, and I only worked for her a few hours a week, and she said no. And I was really, it took me a while to figure out, I wonder what that was about, And the only thing I could figure out is that, she had married into wealth, and previous to being married, she had struggled, and there was something in her about what is fair, And so after I'd worked for her for a year on her own, she decided, okay, I'm going to give you a raise now. It's been a year. So she had this kind of thing, about it, what's appropriate, or when do you give a raise, it was very interesting. But I was just really struck by that there's someone who had plenty of money. And like, I could go on about what they owned. So, tennis court and huge home and swimming pool and on and on and on. So, it was something where I really had a hard time fathoming what that could be that prevented her from doing that. Was this something, though, very real? No question.
Yeah. Well, I just love the inquiry. I love that you wondered. Just the act of wondering what might be cooking in another person is humanizing.
Well, you know how they say people who are hurt others. And I'm guessing she was hurt around that herself, and something in her was, it's just, that's the only thing I could fathom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're right on there, that the source of our innocence is the pain and suffering of the generation that came before us.
Well, she wasn't a different generation, however, but she must have suffered around money, That's
I didn't mean that she was from a different generation. I meant that she got her own innocence from who she learned it from. Marshall often talked about the educational system that we're in. And he didn't mean the schools. He meant the whole culture. How is the culture educating us? He often used the phrase, the good life. What's the good life mean? And I don't know whether you got this growing up in America, but what I got was that the good life means that you accumulate things. You get addicted to stuff. And so it's not about people, it's about things. And that created a lot of suffering in my life, and still does. It still does. And I got that, my parents didn't mean to give me those messages. It's just the same messages they got. And it probably can be traced all the way back to 17, whatever date that was, that Tanya was talking about earlier. And maybe even 10,000 years ago at the birth of a domination system. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, talking about enemy, I think it was the enemy image when 20 years ago or so, I was supporting a family and I remember just managing money. I was working a couple of jobs and everything. And I remember my daughter, she was a teenager at the time, saying to me, all you think about is money. And all my conversations just about money. I just had an enemy image of myself as being sort of heartless. And I remember kind of contracting and being more quiet about it. And, so just witnessing that today, today I care much less about money. I just seem to spend what I want and have loosened up but I did have one image. Somehow this brought up when I think I was about 8, and I took some silver dollars from my parents, and I paid the boy next door like $2 silver to be able to pick berries in his backyard for a longer period of time. And my parents found out about it. They sent me to bed without dinner. It was the only time they ever did that. So it's just, I just realized in innocence, I remember just lying so much and stealing and everything. It was like, anyways.
Yes, thank you.
I hope I've learned.
Yeah, yes. These lessons are painful. That's the pain and suffering that comes from these innocence. And You just gave $2 to somebody. You didn't know that there was something special about this particular form of money, but yet your parents had some kind of attachment to it, sounds like.
Yeah, they were attached.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
And I see Aviva has her hand up.
So I just something percolated in me, and I guess I just feel compelled to say this, which is when we say, oh, we were thinking about money so much, or like, oh, if we would just chill out, or oh, there is definitely like an economic reality that when you have less money, you have to think about it, and when you have more, like, or I'll speak for myself, if I have like something in the bank and I know, oh, I don't have to worry for a couple months, I'm fine, like, then I don't have to think about money. But I just want to clarify for everyone on this call that I don't think that the goal is to stop thinking about money or quote unquote chill out or something like that. I think that it is just to have as healthy a relationship with money as we each individually can, given our situation. But it is like a point of privilege to say, I never have to think about money, and therefore everyone else shouldn't have to think about it either.
Yeah.
So anyway, not that anybody was saying that, but I just like felt compelled to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said. Money, it's so related to security. And I just watched someone close to me whose partner died, and the thing that was most scary was, how would this person support themselves now? How would they take care of themselves? And just that angst that comes up around that as we shift and move through things in the world.
Yeah.
And Sudha has a beautiful thing in the chat.
Yes.
Thank you, Jory.
Having money doesn't necessarily translate to being wealthy. Poverty, scarcity may exist even when I have a whole lot of money. And in the case that I was talking about, there's enough money there, but that fear of loss and that instability, and then the awakening or the freeing, the emotional state of, I really do have it. I will survive with what I have, and not only survive, but thrive to some extent.
And that was Sudha's edit of what she wrote in there, that this is poverty or scarcity is in the mind, may exist even when I have a lot of money. That's innocence, pain, and suffering all rolled into one addictive snarl right there. That, in fact, there's some real eye-opening research that beyond a certain point of accumulating wealth or making a particular salary, I don't know what the current number is, but that the more you accumulate, the less empathy that you tend to have, which makes sense because, we have a new neighbor here. What's his name? Amazon guy, Jeff Bezos. Yeah, he just bought like half of Maui. That's an exaggeration, of course. There comes my innocence talking. But he's a new neighbor, and he's actually been quite generous since he got here. But nothing compared to what he could give. But he's been supporting quite a few NGOs, and I think it's Jeff, isn't it, Nikhil Nanda, that moved to Maui? Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, but he also is blocking his house. There's a bit of water in front of him, and he doesn't want people going there. So everyone has their different sides.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Even George
And I
Harrison.
see that Dan has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Sure. So another thing that I got from the breakout room is that I have a belief that giving money is burdensome. And so I have difficulty receiving money from others, not wanting to impose burden upon them.
Thank you. And then we'll finish up with Majida here, who reminds us of if there's only one thing you take away from today, it's this distinction that Majida is pointing out. Money is a strategy to meet lots of needs. Other strategies are available, and they may not be as simple or as easy to access, though they may foster more community and awareness of interdependence. Yeah, so let's not get stuck on one strategy to contribute to all these needs. Let's awaken the possibility of things like gift economy, compassionate giving and receiving, mutual aid societies, things that we haven't even yet invented. We can figure out a way to meet more needs with less cost. I see your hand, Siva, but I need to do the 525 things here, since we're just a little bit past that. If you're not on our mailing list and you would like to be, you can click the link that I just put into the chat. We do make recordings of all of these calls, and they will show up at that page eventually, that particular link. I had I took advantage of the lull caused by the pandemic to finish my first book, which is called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. The preference is that you support small-scale capitalism or your local library system by asking them to get copies of the book. If you want to order it so that you can get free shipping, however, and do it directly, that particular link there will get you lots of ways to get it to you, hopefully. As I mentioned, we are experimenting with compassionate giving and receiving in this practice group. We've been doing it for 20 years now. Never charged a penny for the practice group and never will. But we do love it when you give us money, because that allows us to keep giving it away and to make it possible to continue our work and the work of other trainers and trainer candidates. The preference is that you give the money directly to the Center for Nonviolent Communication by following that link. And if you're a US based citizen, then you can get a tax deduction, perhaps. Check with your accountant.
And I just want to say, if you do send it to CNBC, do let us know, because that actually offsets our costs of being a member of CNBC.
Yeah, and for some reason the link is broken for our PayPal account. So I'll just put my email address here. Radical Compassion goes to both of us too. You can give, it does still work. This link does still work.
Great.
Okay, so let me put the link in.
Is that complete, or
Yes.
we're actually at the point of the end of the class? Siva will just sort of do our finals, and then we'll move people into breakout groups if they want to, or say goodbye, and then we'll get to hear what you have to say, Siva. So, thank you all for coming, and we can end with everybody saying goodbye. And if you'd like to stay on, I'll open up the breakout groups and move people around so that we have groups of more than one happening here if the people that you were with have left. So if you want to open up your mics now and say goodbye, love to hear your voice.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye. Aloha.
Aloha.